In an old home recording from 1959, we see Maxine's father, a church priest, praising his daughter's dance steps. Fast forward to 1985, Maxine has become a recognized figure in adult films, though she questions if this path was ever her true desire. Craving fame, she feels her time in the industry is ending and seeks a breakthrough in mainstream cinema. During an audition, Maxine is asked to portray suffering on camera, which she does with remarkable skill. After the audition, she mocks the other contestants before leaving. Meanwhile, the news is abuzz with reports of a serial killer known as the Night Stalker, spreading fear throughout the city. Maxine arrives at a strip club and enters a room known as the Flight Crew. As she prepares for work, the news continues to cover stories about the Night Stalker. Backstage, Amber complains about how difficult Maxine is to work with, suggesting they go to a party in the Hollywood Hills. Maxine declines, citing other commitments. When Maxine gets home, she receives a call from her manager, Teddy. He tells her that she didn't get the part in a music video because they believe she isn't known outside of the adult film industry. Frustrated, Maxine wonders how she'll ever break into mainstream movies. At a video store, Maxine asks his friend Leon to list celebrities who began their careers in horror films. She adds herself at the bottom of the list as she has just landed a role in a movie called Puritan 2. Later, at her workplace, Maxine dances for an anonymous man. At the end of her shift, Maxine waits outside the club for her friend Tabby Martin. Tabby expresses concern about walking alone with the Night Stalker on the loose and invites Maxine to a party, but she declines because she has an early audition for a movie. After Tabby leaves, Maxine navigates the city streets, unaware of a man trailing her. As she strolls through a narrow alley, she encounters a locked gate and decides to turn back. Suddenly, she notices the man drawing a knife and telling her she can't escape. Unfazed, Maxine pulls out a gun, forcing the man to strip and kneel. Terrified, the man obeys, and Maxine orders him to lie face down on the ground. She tells him that the last person who tried to attack her met a gruesome fate. She then stomps on his groin with her heels, painfully crushing it. Later, Maxine is calmly watching Puritan 1 with Leon on her couch. A knock at the door interrupts her, and she steps into the hallway, noticing the building's elevator doors closing. On the floor, she finds an envelope addressed specifically to her containing a tape. She plays it on her television and realizes it's a tape from 1979, featuring her and the farmer's daughter. Quickly, she removes the video as Leon wakes up and leaves. Meanwhile, a man is seen recording his property when he enters a room where sobbing can be heard. Inside, Amber and Tabby are found gagged and blindfolded. Tabby is then moved to another location. The men searching for their boss witness him grabbing Tabby by the neck. The next morning, Maxine is on the set of Puritan, where a crew member asks her to stand still so they can make a cast of her head. The woman places the prepared dough on Maxine's head and tells her to wait while she gets more bandages. As Maxine sits motionless waiting, she has fleeting memories of Pearl abusing her back in 1979 at a cottage. Pearl's haunting words echo in her mind, and she falls to the floor in a panic, desperately trying to remove the plaster from her face. Meanwhile, Detectives Torres and Williams arrive at a cemetery where 2 female bodies have been discovered. There is speculation that the Night Stalker might be responsible, but the detectives suspect otherwise. Upon examining the bodies, they learn that the victims have been dead for approximately 5 to 6 hours. They notice that the bodies, who are Maxine's friends, have a scar of a star surrounded by a circle. As Maxine sits in her car, she notices a piece of paper on her windshield with a phone number. She calls the number, and the man on the other end gives her an address to meet him and threatens to reveal what happened in Texas if she refuses. Maxine arrives and meets John, who introduces himself as a private detective. He doesn't disclose who hired him, but starts listing the names of the production crew of the movie The Farmer's Daughters. Maxine admits that her past still haunts her, but denies any involvement in the deaths of those people. John then hands her the address where her presence has been requested, warning that if she doesn't show, she will never be able to work in the city again, as his employer is very powerful. After John leaves, Maxine takes the envelope, which contains news articles about the massacre at the cottage. When Maxine returns home, she is confronted by the detectives who want to question her about the disappearances of her colleagues, as she was the last to see them. However, Maxine refuses to cooperate. In her apartment, she takes the tape to Leon, hoping he can identify its origin. Leon informs her that there are no clues about who made the recording, but suggests she look for where that particular brand of cassette is sold. Later, while sitting in her car, Maxine listens to news of another attack by the Night Stalker. Feeling increasingly weighed down, she heads to a meeting with Liz, the film's director. During their drive, Liz reveals that the directors were hesitant to cast Maxine to avoid negative backlash, but she defended Maxine due to her unique talent and standout audition. Liz then takes Maxine to a rundown motel, pointing out that a famous horror movie was filmed there years ago, when America was still very conservative. She invites Maxine to visit the set the next day, where she'll be filming a scene with an actress Maxine should meet. However, Maxine is uneasy about the motel's appearance, as it reminds her of Pearl, whom she thinks she sees at the window. Liz snaps her out of her thoughts, emphasizing that only a few make it in Hollywood. She urges Maxine to become obsessed with her career and eliminate any distractions to avoid being sent back to where she came from. Maxine drives away, but in her rearview mirror, she notices John following her with a camera. She pulls over, gets out, and confronts him by hitting him. John insists he's just a paparazzi who will be following her everywhere. Maxine then visits Teddy and confides in him about the incident in Texas 6 years ago. Teddy is surprised she never mentioned it before, but reassures her that he will handle everything, including talks with the detectives. He assures her of his complete trust and support, even if it gets him into trouble. Teddy reminds her to focus on being a star, and as Maxine returns home, she begins reading the script. Meanwhile, Leon closes the video store for the night, unaware that the Night Stalker is hiding inside. The killer emerges wielding a knife and brutally attacks Leon. The murderer then enters John's car, suggesting that they are working together. The following morning, Maxine is awakened by a phone call from Teddy, who briefs her on details concerning John. Glancing out of her window, Maxine notices several police cars and hurries outside to investigate. Detective Williams, aware of her presence, allows her to see Leon's lifeless body, though she is prevented from getting close. At the morgue, Williams shows Maxine the bodies of her co-workers. Torres questions her, seeking any information about the Night Stalker, emphasizing the need for leads. Williams suggests that the murders might be an attempt to frame the serial killer and notes that the common link among the victims is their connection to Maxine. This leads to suspicions about her involvement with the killer. As the detectives press her, implying she might be working with the Night Stalker, Williams steps in to reason with her. Torres warns that if she doesn't cooperate, she could end up like her friends. Despite this, Maxine chooses to leave. Williams follows her outside, pleading for her help to prevent further killings. Maxine responds that the next victim should save herself just as she did. During the filming of the movie, Liz makes some adjustments to the shots. Maxine arrives late and apologizes, so Liz warns her that she will be replaced if she is late again. Liz then introduces Maxine to the film's leading lady, Molly. In a private conversation, Molly advises Maxine to follow Liz's instructions precisely to secure future roles in the industry. Molly then leaves for a party in the Hollywood Hills. Maxine then wanders around the set and encounters John, who is now armed and seeking revenge. He chases her until she reaches the Psycho Motel. As John prepares to enter, a guard intercepts him and tells him to leave. Liz then calls Maxine and advises her to rest over the weekend to prepare for filming on Monday. Later, Maxine gets ready for her performance at the club as a dancer. John shows up the location, and she lures him into the bathrooms. John searches the cubicles but realizes she has escaped through a window. He heads outside only to be ambushed by Teddy and the other men. When John regains consciousness, he finds himself handcuffed behind the wheel of a car. Without wasting any time, they press a button to crush the car with John locked inside. Maxine is back at her apartment, determined to leave that chapter of her life behind. The news is dominated by stories of the Night Stalker, sparking memories of what Williams had asked of her. She recalls that her two deceased friends had attended the same party that Molly is planning to go to. This prompts Maxine to head to the same location to find Molly, all while being tailed by the detectives. She arrives at a secluded property in the mountains, the same place where her friends had been held captive. As she steps inside, she hears a recording of her father's voice from her childhood. In front of her is the ominous door from which her friend's killer had emerged. Gathering her courage, she slowly opens it and sees the old home video of her father. When the video ends, her father, Ernest Miller, appears, claiming how difficult it was to track her down and pleading to take her home. Her father disarms her, revealing he is making a movie with her as the star. He rants about Hollywood's corrupting influence and his belief that he can unleash the devil within her. In the midst of this, a suitcase falls down, spilling Molly's severed head. Maxine is horrified, giving her father the chance to slip a plastic bag over her head. They struggle fiercely as Maxine gasps for air until she finally stops moving. The scene transitions to Maxine's audition for the role in Puritan 2. She confidently declares to the audience that she is the perfect choice, describing herself as an unparalleled star. Suddenly, multiple spotlights illuminate Maxine, who is gagged and encircled by her father's devotees. Her father reassures her not to fear, promising to fulfill her deepest desire. He explains that although he attempted to save her friends, they faced God's wrath due to their refusal to accept divine love. The cameras start recording as Ernest addresses them, announcing his intention to document an exorcism. He recites a Bible verse, claiming that the proof of Maxine's possession will reveal Hollywood as a cult that seduces the young into a life of sin. Proclaiming that the devil is real, he approaches Maxine and urges her to cooperate. He then grips her head, demanding that she confess to be saved by divine intervention, warning her that failure to do so will result in being marked with the inverted star. As he's about to touch his daughter's face, the detectives burst in. Torres orders everyone to stop. Ernest urges his followers to fight for God. As chaos ensues, Ernest's robe catches fire and he throws himself into the pool. Gunfire erupts and Maxine watches her father flee. She uses a hidden knife to free herself. One of the group members pushes Maxine into the pool, but she manages to eliminate him with a knife. Torres rushes to find the leader, while Williams assures Maxine that help is on the way. Maxine grabs a gun from the ground and chases after her father alongside the detectives, heading towards the Hollywood sign. Torres, gravely wounded, asks Maxine to apply pressure to his wound as Williams pursues Ernest. With his dying breath, Torres confesses his dream of being an actor. Maxine then runs to assist Williams in stopping her father. When she reaches the sign, she finds Williams severely injured. She tells her that Ernest is trapped. Williams falls down a slope, and Maxine catches up to her badly hurt father on the ground. Believing he has created a monster, he begs for forgiveness. At that moment, reinforcements arrive. The news later reports that after a year-long search, the real Night Stalker has been captured. Afterwards, the host welcomes movie star Maxine for an interview with Teddy, where she bravely recounts the traumatic experience of having to kill her own father. Maxine expresses her immense gratitude for finally achieving her dream of becoming a recognized and acclaimed star. She has sold the rights to her story, which will be adapted into a film directed by Liz. Maxine encourages all women to reject a life they don't believe they deserve. She recalls her father's final words where he told her he never failed her, but always gave her what she needed even though their relationship ended tragically. A month later, Maxine has a conversation with Liz on set. Liz asks how it feels to be so close to success, and Maxine responds that she hopes this feeling never ends.